Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's Claire Cavalli, clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. So today I'm going to discuss with you about the communication problems that a lot of us can face during our menopause journey. And in particular, it comes with how we're personally feeling as we try to navigate and understand exactly what's going on for ourselves, let alone everybody else who may well be affected during this time in our life. So as a therapist myself, I always turn to my toolbox in terms of what can I offer as a resource in order for my clients to be able to turn to something in between sessions should they need to. Now, this is not a sponsored video, but it's something that I personally use myself, and I wanted to bring this to the table today because you may find it beneficial. I have recommended these to clients in the past as well, and they find them really beneficial all round in terms of how they can best communicate and put their feelings, their thoughts, and any physical sensations that might come up for them when they're having a particular topic of conversation, including that of children, as they also navigate the puberty. So if anything, it could almost be used as a bit of a game when it comes to young children, because it enables them to have a more balanced perspective of exactly what's going on for them emotionally. So what I'm referring to today is these. These are called mood cards, and they are a fantastic way to almost use essentially as an icebreaker as well. And when you get the box, it does come with some instructions here as well about how to actually use them and for the purpose of them. And within the box, you've got quite a lot of different cards. And with each one, you will have, for example, one here called frustrated. And what I do personally, if I have a client here and I feel it's right to use this particular resource in a session, and even myself as a mum, as I'm navigating the perimenopause, or if one of my children is experiencing something that they're not quite sure how to manage themselves, and they're finding it difficult to open up. So even, believe it or not, as a therapist myself, my first role is to be a mum. I'm not their therapist. So in order for them to open up a little bit more, we lay these cards all out on the floor. And the first thing I'll say to them is lay them out in whichever way you want to. Throw them out, whatever feels good for you. And then they will spend some time looking at the different faces that you can see here. If I just put that close up so you can see it. So you've got different ones. You've got joyous ones, you've got happier ones, confident. You've got ones that say maybe worried. So every possible emotion that you could think of is encompassed, included within these mood cards. This then enables you to use the back of them. So if, for example, I was to choose a very common one with menopausal ladies, it would be this one here, frustrated. If I just read to you what it says: frustration has turned me from a normally peaceful, loving person into an irrational, angry one. So I then go to the back of this card, and there are 3 questions on this. So what is the cause of your frustration? Now, what I would highly recommend to you is that you really spend the time sitting with this question. What thoughts come to mind? What physical sensations might also come to mind? Really take the time, which I mention a lot in my videos about taking time, to really get in touch with what it is that you are finding frustrating and see what that actually opens up for you. Then the next question: what part are you playing in this situation? Do you like the view you have of yourself? Now, a key part of mood cards as well is really getting in touch with your well-being, your mood, your behaviours. And then this really does play well into emotional regulation and being able to manage anything that comes up for you in general, let alone the menopause. It helps in a whole host of ways in terms of how you go through this journey of life. So it has many, many, many benefits. How can you do things differently from now on? Now, what we also have to bear in mind that when certain things crop up in the menopause journey or life in general, if you're using this with children, whatever it may be that's suitable for you personally, it's to be kind to yourself in regards to how you're going to do things differently. So there's something called cognitive behavioural therapy. I do cognitive behavioural hypnotherapy, and I personally like to mention to people and that it's important for them to have almost like a code word in their head or something that stops them from behaving the way they used to before, that triggers them. So if they're frustrated by a particular situation, then they can stop themselves from reacting in the usual way they do. However, sometimes, of course, with my clients, because that's why they do come to see me, is that there is a block there and they don't consciously know why they keep getting triggered by this one thing. Therefore, it would be on a subconscious level. So that's where they come to see me. And as a hypnotherapist, we discuss it in a conversational manner to allow them to get to what is causing that issue. So if these don't work for you, that is when you do need to seek professional help. But it's always worth trying something like this, because sometimes you'll be really surprised at what comes up for you, because we do not spend the time with ourselves to essentially get to know ourselves. Now, that might sound like a bit of a silly thing to say, but when you think about life in general, we grow up, we go to school, we have to think about what career we want, then we want to maybe go college or we go to work. We have a lot of decisions that are thrown our way, and if we don't know how to manage certain things as we navigate life in general, when we come up to situations like the menopause or when men go for the andropause, it can have a knock-on impact with all the hormones that are fluctuating anyway. It is important that psychologically that we can come from a place where we think, do you know what, this has happened to me before and I know how to manage it. But where life happens and everybody is in a rush and we feel a lot of pressure to do certain things, sometimes we don't just sit down and talk. Either being with ourselves and journaling, doing things like this as part of that process. That's another way you could actually use this resource if you're by yourself. But also as a tool to understand other people. It's really important that communication, which is the biggest downfall for women hitting their menopause and it disrupting marriages, possibly maybe, that we do sit down and we choose to spend the time to use tools and resources such as these, or speaking to a professional like myself or somebody else who you feel pulled to get help with, and they can help you understand yourself more. We are here as therapists to listen so that you can actually be seen and heard. And that does sound really bizarre when you think about it, but we are women who are experiencing the menopause. If we have children or not, or maybe a busy career, whatever your personal situation is, you matter. And what you're experiencing is something that is life-changing. And I know women are going to be different throughout their whole experience. Like I've said many times before, some women will just navigate it with ease and others will really struggle and others will find the symptoms debilitating. But with that, the way that we choose to navigate it and having all these resources such as this, or a therapist, or going to a workplace and checking out their well-being policy that they have, it's really important that you take the time to sit down and figure out what you want out of this. Figure out what it is that you're trying to communicate with your children or your partner or your friends or whoever else in the family. And more importantly, yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, then how are you going to communicate effectively and share your feelings and frustrations and anxiety and maybe fear and put it across in a way that people can start to understand you? If it's something you're not comfortable with initially, then of course you can do it yourself to enable you to feel more confident to be able to speak to your partner, your children, whatever. Or you can, of course, reach out for personal and professional help. But it's important that you do what feels right to you. Really get in touch with what it is that you are trying to achieve, because at the end of the day, as you go through this menopause journey, if you know that you can turn to something that helps you in a moment of struggle, then you will find you take back that control, you start to feel more empowered, and you can slowly but surely learn to embrace this part of your life, because it shouldn't be a time in our lives that we come from scarcity and a place of lack. And I'm not diminishing the fact that, you know, some women can really struggle, but I wanted to come on here and just mention these mood cards because they are really, really useful. They're very effective. They're very simple to use.